Very Bad Wizards is a podcast with a philosopher, my dad, and a psychologist, Dave Pizarro, having an informal discussion about issues in science and ethics. Please note that the discussion contains bad words that I'm not allowed to say, and knowing my dad, some very inappropriate jokes.
The only thing an old man can tell a young man is that it goes fast, real fast. And if you're not careful, it's too late. Of course, the young man will never understand this truth.
The great and honest has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. Pay no attention to that man. Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.
Welcome to Very Bad Wizards. I'm Tamler Summers. Dave, the listener response to last episode's tier ranking of academic fields was fierce. Did you know chemists were that sensitive?
I did not. I didn't think they had emotions, to be honest.
I know. Right. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone into chemistry.
No, I know. Like, should we just say like this? It was gonna be an intro. Like, it really does seem like people took us a little more seriously than we intended. Like, this was not like our definitive value judgments.
If we do a slight peek behind the curtain, that discussion took an hour, and then the subsequent discussion, which will appear on this episode, took a very long time as well on Flannery O'Connor's Good Country People, which everyone will hear, and I think it was a good discussion.
Yeah. But a long one. And so we should have like to sleep, we have to sleep.
It's true. But yes, we heard almost exclusively from chemists and the stray economist. And
I heard from my philosophy of feminism teaching wife, as I predicted, that ranking gender studies so low is a personal insult to her. And then I said, no, but you're a philosopher of feminism. Right. And she was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll...
We made that distinction, Like,
yeah.
Also,
it's not like she listened. She just saw it too.
Texas state law, I literally couldn't give it anything above a C, and even put it like that. Like giving it a C puts me at risk.
Yeah.
It puts my job at risk, my family at risk.
Of all the shit we've said.
Yeah, it was surprising because I really think even though it carried over into a main episode, like I felt like we were pretty upfront about our ignorance, like
multiple times.
Yeah, but, multiple times.
Nobody wants to hear hear that we rank their entire life a C. But we also made it just about majors too. Like we were real measured.
It's weird because it would never have occurred to me, like if I was a fan of a podcast and they put philosophy low, like to get really upset by that. So maybe it's your issues, listeners, and not our issues.
Listen, go think about Avogadro's number or whatever it is you do, chemists. 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd.
Like put the little piece of paper in to see if it's acidic or basic.
No, we're just drawing. I love chemistry. I love you guys.
We love chemistry.
Yes.
As many listeners pointed out, chemistry is where you get the drugs, and we appreciate the drugs and we appreciate the medicine, although some of it. So yeah, we're going to talk about a really great story, and I hope our discussion did it justice. Flannery O'Connor's Good Country People. I fucking love that story. I thought it kind of blew me away, and in a specific way where like I thought it was great while I was reading it, and then the ending just also like gobsmacked me. So yeah, but first we're gonna lay off the chemistry people and talk shit about the sexsomniacs. Sexsomniacs?
Sexsomnia.
this is a paper that I found. But
it was our good friend Neuroskeptic on Blue Sky.
Yes, and God bless that man, whoever he is, or woman, or
I think he's outed as a man.
I think so too. Yeah, he, him. Left-hand sleep masturbation in a right-handed male patient with sexsomnia. Yeah, so this is, how would you describe it?
Hot off the presses.
And hot.
May 2026. It's from the future, from Sleep Medicine. And this is about just an individual case study of a male patient who suffers from a parasomnia sleep disorder called sexsomnia, where he jerks off while he's asleep. So this is from the abstract. Here we present the case of a man who was accused of sexually assaulting his girlfriend during the night, but had no memory of doing so. During a video polysomnography, he masturbated in his sleep with his left hand during the N2 and N3 sleep stages, confirming sexsomnia. However, he always masturbated with his right hand when awake. This is the twist.
This feels like a Law and Order SVU. Like, how do you know he always masturbates with his right hand when awake? You know?
Yeah. It's, what's the name of that? God damn it. Where he goes, one more thing.
Columbo?
Columbo. It's like a one more thing.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
What hand do you always masturbate with the same hand?
Why is the lotion on the left side of your bed?
Columbo's great, by the way. Like that's one of the most fun things you can do is just plop yourself down and watch a Columbo.
I only ever watched like a few episodes. It was like slightly before like my maturity levels.
I mean, it was before my time too, but you could find the reruns of
like
it.
On USA or whatever.
Yeah,
they would show them.
Peter Falk, God bless that man. I love him. So there's a lot that's a little suspicious about the story, but should we we go through the case report?
Yeah. So all right. So they describe this man in all of like the technical ways, like his weight and his sleepiness. And they say that, look, like nothing seemed wrong. He didn't have to pee during the night, which is, like a problem for some men. He had some snoring, but for the last 6 years, his partners would report nocturnal sexual behaviors. And yeah, the not funny part is that one of them was his girlfriend who reported to the police that she had been sexually assaulted. He sleep-talked, but he didn't sleepwalk. He didn't have sleep terrors. And so the thing that he has is basically like not during dream sleep, so not during rapid eye movement sleep when we dream. Before that, we go through 3 stages of sleep before getting to REM. So stage 1, 2, and 3. During stages 2 and 3, he would have what's called these arousal incidents where you basically just wake up. You just wake up in the middle of these sleep stages and just like start mumbling and incoherently. And then you'll like go back to sleep. But if you wake up, you're super confused. You have no memory of it. It's the same thing that happens in sleepwalking, except for in sleepwalking, you're walking. In this case, you're just staying in bed. But like some people, like I've heard of this before, do these sexual behaviors when they have these wake ups. Nobody donates to charity or anything when they have these. Nobody's like helping old ladies across the street. Like they're not like engaging in any other like nice behaviors. It's like it's just like raping. Like,
they're not like going on to like 1-800-Flowers to like.
Yeah, exactly. It says something about you.
Men are scum.
Yeah. But so this is the other part that was like kind of fascinating to me. So if we're to believe this, that he's masturbating with his left hand, when he's actually right-handed, is apparently consistent with some other research out there. And so it says recently, Avidan et al. Pointed to a surprising laterality shift in masturbation during sleep. Right-handed men and women using their left hand. So there's something going on in your brain that they think might be related to the fact that this is involuntary that is causing this shift from like
But
yeah.
Okay, I have an issue with this. I feel like right-handed people masturbate with their left hands. Like that's like almost a cliche. Like it's not that unusual.
Right,
To
but
masturbate with your offhand, and all we have is his word, I assume. Because I mean, I'm not saying he's lying about this, but I'm saying it's weird that they make such a big deal about that.
yeah, all they say is the patient confirmed that he only uses his right hand to masturbate while awake. So, maybe he's like, just faking it completely to get out of the rap.
Well, no, even if he's not, like, I just think like that's a normal thing. I don't want to get into any personal confessions, but I don't know. Like I thought I'm a
righty and a righty in both cases.
Okay.
So this is like, I think they said the only case, or at least just not very many cases where they actually have video of him in the lab doing this while they're recording his brain waves. And so they have, and like the little standard, like the following are the supplementary data related to this article. And then they just have a video of him like asleep.
And he's not even really masturbating. He's just kind of putting his hand in his pants, which we all do.
It's just like the Al Bundy move, it looks like. But, like he might be jostling it a little bit. Like it's kind of dark. Can't tell.
But he's not like jacking it.
No, he's not. He didn't have to. It's all underneath the clothing. He's only like getting to second base with himself, basically.
Yeah. Which I feel like I'll do like during seminar,
I hope not.
No, but you know what I mean? Like not during seminar, but if I'm watching a movie and like I have like cover or whatever, put it in there and just for warmth and comfort.
Look, like I have like a infant child, man child, and it's a behavior that starts very early, let's just say. So like they tried to treat this with gabapentin. They put him on Paxil. The Paxil apparently helped. And they report that the girlfriend dropped the charge, which seems like a little, like maybe not the scientific part of this case study. Also, they talk about self-masturbation in a way that's very confusing to me. Like I would think that if you say masturbation, it's understood that you mean self.
Right. Like this is actually a conceptual analysis question, but like, can there be like other masturbation, or is
I feel like we could talk about this for a lot, because when people talk about mutual masturbation, I think they mean fondling each other. They don't mean I'm sitting there jerking off and she's sitting there jerking off. Right?
Okay. I'm not sure actually, because I think mutual masturbation is often used metaphorically. And then it does mean you were kind of jerking each other off. But I feel like if I was going to hear that in a porn or sexual context, it would be two women masturbating side by side.
Like side by side?
Yes.
Yeah. See, like I feel like there's conceptual slippage here. I feel like sometimes people mean next to each other. Like in the Gooner article, when like the guys are all in the same room watching a porn and jerking, I wouldn't say that's mutual masturbation. I would just say that's just masturbation, like simultaneous masturbation.
But you remember in the article, like if you could have like a card.
Yeah, if you have like
that
blue.
means someone can just like reach around and like
right. But then if they're reaching around, they're giving me a hand job. They're not mutual. We're not mutually masturbating. Yeah.
Right. But then, so then I think mutual masturbation. So, you're saying it's impossible. It's like incoherent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think people mean it in the incoherent way. Because I feel like if they were talking about side by side, they would say it.
If we were philosophers, we would turn this into skepticism about masturbation. Like, it would just mean there's no such thing as masturbation, because we can't come up with like a counterexample free theory of like,
That's right. All right. So you don't buy the what this says about free will?
Well, no. Here's what I'm not sure I buy is the story. Like, so like, what's your credence? What's your priors? What's, you run it through your Bayesian formula, like that this guy isn't like, he got handsy with his girlfriend and then just kind of invented all this.
I assumed that. Like, I just assumed that.
Yeah.
I assumed this is a fake journal where you can pay to have like exonerating scientific journal articles written about you.
So you don't know about sleep medicine, this journal?
I don't know about it. I'm sure it's fine. And I have heard of parasomnias. Like of sexsomnias. Like that's true. This all just seems like the left-handed thing just seemed too convenient to me. I mean, I believe if these are real scientists, like they did observe him and they did record the wave function like while he's sleeping, and that's how we determine what stage of sleep you're in, like which waves, and he does appear to be touching himself during these stage 2 and 3 of sleep. So
but I just feel like you could take a video of me while I'm sleeping and I might do what this guy's doing in the video, and like
I think the idea is that you're like during these stages of sleep, you shouldn't be moving with like any kind of like volition or whatever with any
unless you have sexsomnia.
Unless you have sexsomnia. But I actually don't know how many of us just wake up kind of in the middle of these sleep stages, and because you don't get up and murmur things or like. To your knowledge. Yeah. I feel like I would be surprised if like one morning my wife was like, you were in the middle of sleep. You were like vigorously going at it. But then it's the video that makes it seem less. If they hadn't shown the video, I would think this guy is just full on like trousers down, like
they shouldn't have showed the video. I think it was underwhelming. But like maybe it's a real problem, and maybe, I don't know if GiveWell is going to make it one of its major charities, but
it should.
They should.
It should.
I like that they tried a lot of different drugs too.
Yeah,
found
like he had sleep apnea too, so you don't want to give. It's like apparently the gabapentin made the sleep apnea worse. So,
yeah, that sucks for the girlfriend also.
Absolute worst combination.
Is this a real thing? I guess. Like, what's your credence? Like that everything is straight here. Like gun to your head.
Gun to my head, I would say yes, only because like these people's reputation are resting on what they're showing us of him like being asleep and actually doing this is real. What I don't know is because like even if this is real, what we don't know is whether the assault is an instance of this. Because you can imagine he really has this,
right?
And yet,
oh, the fucker. Yeah, like he just like, oh, I can just. Is that what you think? If you had to guess,
no, I'm inclined to believe it all. But really only because I've heard of people attempting, like, and doing sexual assault while they were actually sleeping. But then again, it's not like I have a lot of evidence for that stuff. It's just what sleep researchers have said.
And they are French. Like they have typically. More tolerance for sexually problematic behavior. I don't know.
You're going to cut so much out of this.
I don't know. There's something about this that strikes me as weird. I guess it's a real journal, though. Like, given that they're from the Sorbonne, if that's real. Yeah. Like, I wasn't sure if this was like a James Lindsay thing, or. I
mean, it is dated May 2026. So right. Make of that what you.
I'm say gun to my head. There's something fucked about this. I don't know what.
Well, literally. Sexsomnia behaviors, by the way, I wanted to say this before, this is the second sentence, include self-oriented behaviors such as masturbation, spontaneous orgasm, sexual vocalization, genital touching, and coital-like pelvic movements. Like
in my day, they called that wet dreams.
But if you're thrusting your pelvis while you do it.
Yeah. Well, nobody saw us when we were doing it. We were 12 years old.
Those were the days.
But I like when we present a case of a right-handed man who masturbated in his sleep using his left hand, as if that's just like unheard of. That's the thing that raises the red flag for me.
I mean, this is why I was interested in this, especially because it raises questions of identity. and volition. Who is this man? Is he right-handed or is he left-handed? What does this say of his character when non-volitionally he's jerking off with his left hand?
And what does it say about the self? Why is that any less of himself? Like I've been reading about dialogical views of self where so
what if he embraced with his second order desires the masturbation with his left hand?
Well, we will come back to this, I think. This is part one of a long series of sexsomnia segments. All right, any last things to say about this?
No, other than maybe we've just given everybody an out for very bad behavior.
I don't think this is going to work.
Especially not now. But, I'm glad to know that men find every occasion to masturbate that they possibly can. Buses, ballparks, and the middle of sleep.
All right, we'll be right back to talk about Good Country People by Flannery O'Connor. Welcome back to Very Bad Wizards. This is the time where we like to take a moment and thank all of our listeners for getting in touch with us, for reaching out, and of course for their support. I have with me this time a special guest, the assistant editor of Very Bad Wizards herself, the disclaimer girl, and also starting to make a name for herself, Eliza Summers. Eliza, welcome.
Thank you.
We'll get to your business at the end here. Let me go through some business here. If you would like to reach out to us, send us an email, however you like to get in touch, you can reach us at verybadwizards@gmail.com. You can tweet at P's, at Tamler, at verybadwizards. You can follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook. Join the subreddit where we just did an actually fairly pleasant and nice AUA over the weekend. That was fun. And we really appreciate hearing from you. And we still read all of our emails. If you would like to support us in more tangible ways, well, one thing you could do, and this doesn't even require any money, is you could rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. That helps other people find us. But the main way that you can support us financially is through our Patreon. And we have a lot of things going on Patreon right now. A week from now, we'll be releasing our next Lotus Eaters, the book-by-book deep dive into Homer's Odyssey. We just recorded on books 11 and 12. This is where Odysseus goes to the land of the dead. There's the sirens. There's Scylla. A lot of things going on there. We also just opened up our VBW March Madness tournament for the listener selected episode. Right now, all of our Patreon subscribers are suggesting topics, and then we'll narrow it down to a list of 16 finalists, and then have our $10 and up listeners vote tournament style to get a winner. Last time the winner was Schopenhauer. Of course, at the $20 and up level, you can ask us a question every month, and we'll respond to you in video form, but then also audio for all of our bonus tier listeners. So many bonus episodes, so many series. It just keeps growing. And then finally, we have another way you could support one of the members of the Very Bad Wizards family. Eliza, you are writing and directing a thesis project, a kind of capstone of your film career at the University of Texas, Austin, not the University of Austin. You are a UT Austin film student. This is kind of the capstone of your career. What is this short film about?
It's a father-daughter story. It's about Janie. She's our main character. She's moving home, and her dad, Mason, is helping her move. He's not thrilled about her move. He thinks correctly that it's because she's a little too scared to start this next chapter of her life. So all of that to say, they're in the back of a moving truck when all of a sudden the truck slams shut, they're in darkness, and it starts moving forward. We meet these two small-time crooks who think that they just robbed these people and stole a truck, but actually it's now a kidnapping, and Janie and Mason have to find a way to escape.
So I don't understand. It's a father-daughter story, which I love, but you say it's inspired by... You say this on your fundraising page, which we'll get to in a second, but the way you see our relationship, you think I fundamentally find you to be a disappointment because you're too scared?
Yes, I do. And one of the great things about this whole production process is it's really helped me work through that trauma. So.
Okay, great. Well, one other thing that could help you, you have budget trauma right now. It's an expensive movie, kind of an action comedy. So if there are any super generous listeners who want to support a young filmmaker doing her thesis project, any amount would be helpful and any amount would be so appreciated. We will put a link in the show notes for anyone who might want to do that. Any final words, Lai?
I don't think so, but thank you guys so much. And as always, thanks for listening to my dad. Join us next time on Very Bad Wizards.
No, it's not time for that. And now let's get to Flannery O'Connor's Good Country People. All right, let's get to our main segment. We are going to be talking about Good Country People by Flannery O'Connor. And I should say, because I want to give attribution where it's due, the reason I offered this story, we decided we wanted to do a short story, so I suggested a few. And this is the one by Flannery O'Connor that I chose, not because I had read it, because I hadn't. It was because Eliza said in a class she took that was her favorite story in the whole collection.
Oh,
so I trusted her, and you wanted to do it. I don't think you had read it by then either, right?
Yeah, no. I hopped on Wikipedia and read the first paragraph description, and I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Just a fantastic story. I agree with my daughter on this one. It's funny because, I read it for the first time this morning and was totally enjoying it. You know, it's kind of a satire at first of Flannery O'Connor country, rural South. I guess it's Georgia, which didn't even come across to me, but from the summary I'm looking at right now, it says it's in Georgia. And there is a woman named Mrs. Hopewell living with her daughter. Joy was her name she had at birth, but she legally changed it to Helga for reasons we'll talk about. And they also have on this farm tenants, the Freemans. And their role is kind of interesting. I'm not sure what to make of that. No. A lot of it is kind of a comedy of manners between, a description of the dynamic between Mrs. Hopewell, Mrs. Freeman, and Joy/Helga. Joy/Helga is a philosophy PhD. So she was an S tier.
I was going to say, I'm also a major, I'm sure.
Yeah. But she's also she represents the kind of atheist, rationalist, someone who believes that if we look with clear eyes, unblinkered by our biases and what we want to be true, we see that there is a deep nothingness at the foundation of human life and the universe. And meanwhile, her mother is just this country woman who doesn't know what to make of her daughter. Her daughter is 32. She has a artificial leg because she got shot in a hunting accident when she was 10. We don't really learn the details of that. And so she will read Heidegger. She will quote Malebranche at the dinner table. It's just kind of at first about that dynamic. Then we hear about this traveling salesman who is a 19-year-old kid named Manly Pointer who is a Bible salesman, and he comes to their house. And at first they're trying to get rid of him, but in the end he stays for dinner and surprisingly arranges a date with Joy or Helga the next day. So they go out on a date and then it takes a turn that honestly, I don't know if this is true of you. I did not see coming at all, and I was kind of a little bit floored by it. Not like I had to put the book down or anything, but I was like, oh, okay. But before we talk about that, I do want to say read the story, because part of the power of the story to me the first time was just really not expecting it to go where it goes. Like there's not some M. Night Shyamalan twist, but it just went somewhere that I didn't expect, and that really makes the story extremely powerful. That's how I felt. What did you think?
About the ending, I'm totally with you. Did not see it coming, and was like something that just made me keep thinking about it. I loved this story. Like, thank you, Eliza. I think the structure is great, because it's, like you said, it sort of starts off as this, like, about Southern country manners and a woman who has a bit of superiority and views herself as super charitable. And because it starts off about Mrs. Freeman, the hired woman, and Mrs. Hopewell, the woman who hired her, and it turns into a story about Helga / Joy.
Yeah.
For some reason, that has made me keep thinking about it, because, like, you alluded to this, but, like, what is Mrs. Freeman?
Yeah, what's the point?
She's like the most enigmatic one of the whole story.
Yeah. Should we talk, generally speaking, before we go through it in more detail, about what your kind of general thematic thoughts are?
Yeah. Like, I'm also just dying to talk about what these themes are.
So I think one way of reading this, that kind of the one that kind of jumps off the page the first time, at least for me, is a critique of this kind of academic, the kind of smug superiority that Helga has, but also that kind of cosplaying nihilism that, will every once in a while erupt from her at the dinner table, or she'll leave Heidegger lying around without the sense that she fully understands exactly what it is that she's reading. And she, in this date, comes face to face with, like, a real nihilist,
Yeah.
And like she realizes that she has been just cosplaying. She hasn't really understood what it is that she proclaims to believe and what she says to everybody. And it's kind of just an unmasking of her self-deception, and also just about the view itself. It's just a denuding of the pretensions of people like that. So that's one way of reading it, which I think is okay as far as it goes, but I think it goes a lot deeper than that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, it really is like separating the atheist smugness that she has from the nihilism. Like, those are two different aspects of her that rear themselves, like, in a kind of an ugly way. She's just like a mean, like, and superior about everything. And, like, I'm not convinced that she really is a nihilist. She doesn't, I'm convinced that she understands what it means to be a nihilist. But her mother, Mrs. Hopewell, is smug and superior in a very different way, not an intellectualized way.
That's right. And also kind of oversimplifies the world, cuts the world up into different categories, trash or good country people.
Yep. And she can tell which category you belong to. There's 2 categories for everything.
Yeah. And without really having any idea, like, what those things are. And, it is a house of cliches. Like, they talk a lot about cliches. And so it's not in any way kind of glorifying the goodness of, actual rural Southern folk. It's funny, like, Flannery O'Connor is kind of equally scathing to the sort of Northeast educated, elitist, nihilist, existentialist philosopher type, and to the people who just live on a farm and the tenants on the farm. It's like, and yet I think there is a kind of positive purpose to what she's doing here as well.
Well, yeah. So I'll wait to hear your second interpretation, because I do also agree with you that it goes deeper. And I think that it is a story that has optimism at its core. But you have to dig, at least I have to dig through to find it.
Yeah. On the story, and I came across something that said that a lot of people compare her, as the story does, almost explicitly to Hephaestus, or Vulcan, the Roman version of Hephaestus, the crippled god, who we just talked about in our Odyssey series that we're doing on Patreon. And this person argues that actually this isn't a retelling of any Hephaestus story. It's a retelling of the Cyclops story. And at first I was like, wait, what? But there's a lot in there. So just to put that in your mind, that this is a retelling of Odysseus going to the Cyclops, and just to give a tiny bit of plausibility before, think of what the Cyclops is. Someone who says, oh, I don't believe in the gods. I do what I want. All that stuff is bullshit. And then somebody comes and somebody takes advantage of their disability.
Maybe even a complicated man.
A complicated man. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Like it took me a second to line things up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like very interesting. Of course, not told at all from the perspective of the complicated man.
No. And in fact, the complicated man, Odysseus, in that telling would be kind of a villainous character, if not the most villainous character. So,
Yeah, disabled with one eye,
He even says at the end that one of the things that he's stolen is a glass eye.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because the Vulcan shout-out is in, like, Helga herself does.
All right. So you want to dive into it? Do you have any other kind of general thoughts?
Yeah, only one other note, which is I never really explicitly pay that much attention to perspective. But in this one, I was like, so it's obviously third person, and it's clearly not omniscient. It's third person limited, and it switches back and forth from a Mrs. Hopewell perspective and a Helga perspective in a way that I found was just a really effective way of giving us insight into each of those, the internal life of each of those.
And you don't know sometimes, you don't notice it until later. It's done imperceptibly at times, and it can be a little confusing. But certainly the first half or 2/3 of the story is from Mrs. Hopewell's perspective. Yeah. It also shifts between time kind of interestingly. You forget at first that Mrs. Hopewell is thinking about what happened the previous day, and you start to think, oh, this is happening now. And then all of a sudden snaps back to the present as Joy is getting ready for the date. And even the way they call her Joy sometimes and Helga sometimes is, I think, a part of that. I didn't track that, but I definitely thought of it.
Yeah, neither did I, but I was wondering like what the motivation might be for in each case. So it's definitely requires, I think, at least 2 readings to make sense of those time shifts.
Yeah.
At least for me. You know what? One of the things that I was thinking about when I was reading this is it's also so Christian. Like there's like explicit Christianity, obviously, and then there's just like themes that it seems Flannery O'Connor has gone back to over and over again, like grace and salvation and what that means.
Yeah.
And it's never like what you would think of as grace or salvation. But as I was reading, I was like, how much of the Christian stuff for you, having not been like it's so, I'm reading it and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, Jesus said that. And
I probably caught like a fraction of it, so definitely point them out to me. Good. It seems very Catholic to me, and maybe that's influenced by, I know that she was a Catholic.
It's funny because she was Catholic. And she wrote about Protestants.
Yeah.
Like she's writing about like Protestants. So she's kind of infusing Catholic ideas, but it is interesting that she's not writing about Catholics.
Is it a Catholic critique of Protestant Christians?
It's a good question. I didn't read it as that. Like I felt it to be her exploring themes of salvation and grace and just by using these characters.
Yeah, just broadly Christian.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive into it. I'm actually excited to get into the details. So I immediately sat up on reading the first sentence because I thought it was such a great opening sentence. So this is it. Besides the neutral expression that she wore when she was alone, Mrs. Freeman had 2 others, forward and reverse, that she used for all her human dealings. But I love that first line because it just gets you right into the action. Just like there's no prelude, it's just we're talking about Mrs. Freeman. And then the funny thing is she's like an enigmatic figure and things are never from her perspective.
Never. And you get the feeling that there's going to be a story about Mrs. Freeman, and it's not really. So it switches.
The whole first paragraph is about her.
Yeah, I loved it. Whatever she's trying to say about Mrs. Freeman, like I get it. I get I know what she's talking about. I don't know how to say it, but
you can picture her right away.
And she's like almost an NPC but actually maybe the key to the whole story, like the most insightful one of all. What do you make of the reverse? So she has the one forward look, advancing, and then she says she seldom used the other expression because it was often not necessary for her to retract a statement. But when she did, her face came to a complete stop. There was an almost imperceptible movement of her black eyes during which they seemed to be receding.
Yeah.
And then the observer would see that Mrs. Freeman, though she might stand there as real as several grain sacks thrown on top of each other, was no longer there in spirit.
Well, I mean, so like I know what that's describing. There is a kind of person that you can talk to them, and when they're comfortable with their categories, you can have a conversation with them. But if you raise something that questions, something a little closer to the center of the web of belief, you can see them turn off.
Yeah,
you can see the eyes just kind of glaze a little bit, and they're carrying on the conversation, but we're no longer actually talking.
It's like she's powering down.
Yeah, it's like the spirit left her. It's such a good way. Like I would have never have thought of describing it that way. Yeah, now you get the sense, that it's Mrs. Hopewell. So that we're actually getting kind of Mrs. Freeman from Mrs. Hopewell's perspective.
Yeah. So Mrs. Hopewell, we learn, has the 32-year-old daughter named Joy. And we learn that she hired Mrs. Freeman to work on her farm. That she's divorced also, which I don't know if it means anything. Like we never learned why or what the divorce was, but Mrs. Hopewell, like in the South, in whatever this was, the 40s or something, that would be weird. You know, like head of household, divorced woman.
Yeah, running a farm, taking in tenants. But it's not treated as weird.
No,
at all.
Not at all.
So maybe it wasn't weird. I don't know. Like maybe this was common. And
then we learned that Ms. Freeman had a couple of like hot daughters.
Yeah, especially the 15-year-old who was already in the family way.
Glenise and Caramay. Oh, I wanted to ask you broadly, like her use of names is funny.
Yeah.
Like Hopewell, Freeman, Manly.
Manly Pointer. So the 18-year-old has many admirers. The 15-year-old is already married and pregnant and throwing up constantly.
Yeah. And there's this added little bit of character when you learn that every morning Mrs. Freeman told Mrs. Hopewell how many times she had vomited since the last report. This is why Mrs. Freeman is fascinating to me. She's like on the face of it, a small-minded person. Yeah. She's just focused on these like minutia of her life. Like we learn that she's very nosy. Yeah. She loves gossiping, getting into things, and yet she has some sort of third eye. Maybe
one description of her that I love is when Mrs. Hopewell said to Mrs. Freeman that life was like that. Mrs. Freeman would say, "I always said so myself." Nothing had been arrived at by anyone that had not first been arrived at by her.
Dude, yeah.
It's a great line.
And like you were saying, the cliched, the hackneyed phrases that they use, where they have like they string together like three of them into like an utterly meaningless sentence.
Everyone is different. Yes, most people is. It takes all kinds to make the world. I always said it did myself. She said that's afterwards. It's just, this is what it is at first, before you even know anything about Joy beyond her thing. You learn about the daughters. It's kind of interesting that the daughter is already pregnant at 15. And yes, she's married, but you get the sense that was not necessarily the plan. And maybe it didn't happen before the pregnancy.
And we learn almost nothing about Mr. Freeman, who is the farmer.
Yeah, and who never appears. Really, the only male character that appears is Manly Pointer. Yeah. Manly Pointer.
It's almost a dick joke.
I know, and maybe it is. Mrs. Hopewell would tell people that Glenise and Caramay were two of the finest girls she knew. Mrs. Hopewell if she's decides somebody is good country people, then they're good country people.
Yeah. Like you get the feeling that Mrs. Hopewell has a bit of salvation syndrome in her. Like she's picked them and like it's almost her project. So like with her optimism and with her ability to deal with people, she's going to make something good out of this. And she categorizes them as good and she's going to stick to her guns.
So it says the reason for her keeping them so long was that they were not trash. They were good country people. And clearly you see just from that that's how she divides the world up. And the one reference she got of them wasn't particularly good, especially about Mrs. Freeman, that she's always into everything. So
right. And then it's just like this sort of superiority, like hidden by like superficial kindness.
Yeah.
Where the reference says basically like, look, the guy's great.
Yeah.
That woman, we can't stand her. Like, we can't have another minute with her. She's like always getting into everything. And so she's like, okay, she's going to make it her personal project to be the kind of person who can actually turn this weakness into a strength. And here's how she's going to do it. She's going to make her in charge of it. If she wants to get into everything, like, let me make her in charge of everything. And so she really thinks that she's the puppet master, able to control.
Yeah.
Like, there's a sense of superiority that she has over the Freemans, that she's not just being charitable and nice, she's being superior.
Yeah, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree with Joy. I think that's right. It's also a nice comic touch that she hired them because there were no other applicants.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. It's so good. She's like, well, yeah, on the one hand, they were, good country. On the other hand, nobody else.
Right. And she needs someone to work the land and live there. So I do think she's a little like Spinoza's Rock, who is thrown off a cliff and then thinks it's decided to fall. She kind of says, oh, I'm keeping them because they're good country people, not trash. But it's like, no, you're hiring them because there's nobody else. So yeah.
That's so funny.
And and then you see how they kind of speak in cliches, and then you get introduced to Joy.
Here's what I want to say about like what we learn about Joy. So like you said, her leg got shot off in a hunting accident when she was 10. She says it was hard for Mrs. Hopewell to realize that her child was 32 now, and that for more than 20 years she had had only one leg. She thought of her still as a child because it tore her heart to think instead of the poor stout girl in her 30s who had never danced a step or had any normal good times.
Yeah.
And then we learn on top of this that she has some sort of heart condition that the doctor said she'll be lucky to live until she's 45. And it made me think of a case that like there was a woman that I knew when I was a kid who was like went to my school who had, I think, multiple sclerosis, like one of these degenerative kinds of nerve diseases that meant that she was going to die. Like everybody told us, oh, this girl is going to die by the time she's 18.
Yeah.
And her parents like spoiled her. Like they let her get away with everything. They bought her everything. And I think she might have died in her middle age, but like it was way later than anybody thought. But like it ended up that they did not do the kinds of things that like the tough love that you need to give a child to develop their character. She had a really bad character. And so when I was reading about this, I was like, yeah, that's the same vibe. Like she feels so bad about what happened when she was 10 and that she's going to die that she never really raised her in the way that you would.
She probably does spoil her, certainly puts up with her in the same way with the Freemans. It's like, I am going to take this charity case in this case, my daughter, and I'm going to make their life fulfilling.
Right.
But
she's so proud of her patience with people.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's like her. She's like, yeah, that's one thing I'm awesome at. I'm really patient.
Yeah. And then she's also quite deluded about it because she really thought she kind of pulled it off until Joy went and changed her name legally from Joy to Helga.
Which is such a hilarious way to rebel. Yeah. Because it's an ugly name.
Yes. That was the point.
That's so emo.
Exactly. She considered the name her personal affair. She had arrived at it first purely on the basis of its ugly sound, and then the full genius of its fitness had struck her. She had a vision of the name working like the ugly, sweating Vulcan, that's Hephaestus, who stayed in the furnace and to whom, presumably the goddess, who's Aphrodite, had to come when called. She saw it as the name of her highest creative act. One of her major triumphs was that her mother had not been able to turn her dust into joy, but the greater one was that she had been able to turn it herself into Helga.
So she's saying that she's Hephaestus or Vulcan?
So Hephaestus or Vulcan, the Roman name, is a crippled god who is also like a master craftsman and like a, what do you call that, iron works or whatever. And he famously in the Iliad creates Achilles' shield, which gets his own book in the Iliad. So he's also a creative person.
So she's saying basically like with this name she's turned her like crippled self into like a creative, powerful like god.
Or she's created like one of his creations, like...
Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure. Yeah, like what is the metaphor?
I don't know. And how do you like, one of her major triumphs was that her mother had not been able to turn her dust into joy. like, I don't totally understand what's being said there.
It's interesting because it's joy, capitalized, referring to her name, but she's saying like she couldn't turn the dust, which is, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, what we're made of. Like in joy, in Helga's view, we are nothing but.
Yeah, dust. Yeah.
And her mom's optimism hadn't been able to like make a beautiful thing out of what truly is only dust. So she's proud that she had resisted her mother's attempts at trying to make her into something more because she doesn't believe there's anything more. And then taking on the name Helga, once again, like names have power, like the self-determination. She's identified herself as something ugly. And the world is ugly and life is ugly for her.
Right. So she's created kind of a work of art that expresses the ugliness and bleakness and void.
She crafted her name. Yeah. She's a blacksmith who crafted the name in the depths of the furnace with her crippled body.
Yes.
She made this name, and this name is maybe like the shield, is like her amulet. This is her identity and her protection.
Yeah. And then there's an interesting touch where Helga is very like proud of having done that, proud of having changed the name. But then, and I don't know what to make of this, Mrs. Freeman started to call her Helga, we learn, and that was, she didn't like that.
Yeah, it's weird. And only when Mrs. Hopewell isn't around because she wouldn't put up with it.
Yeah, which is all extra kind of eerie, you might think.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that that's something that actually gets to her. Like she's figured out how to build enough of an armor around herself to deal with her mother and all her silliness. But there's something about Mrs. Freeman that just kind of picks at something, like picks at a scab that she thought had already healed, pierces the shield.
Sometimes I read this and I think, yeah, women really are more perceptive about some things because this is like a very subtle thing that bothers Helga about Mrs. Freeman. She says she had learned to tolerate Mrs. Freeman because she essentially saved her from having to be with her mother and taking walks with her. At first, she thought she could not stand Mrs. Freeman for she had found it was not possible to be rude to her.
Yeah.
So this is frustrating to her that like she's not reacting to the digs that she gives her. Right. That's like a source of frustration for her.
Blatant ugliness to her face. These never touched her. So she is immune. Mrs. Freeman has this power that's immune for what Helga is used to, the little sphere of her control of being able to be rude to people. She can't have.
Yeah. But Mrs. Freeman would take on, and this is like such a good turn of phrase, strange resentments. And for days together, she would be sullen, but the source of her displeasure was always obscure. So she's like, I know that this woman can get upset.
Yeah.
I just don't know what is making her upset because it's not the thing that seems to work on everybody else in my life. We didn't say, by the way, Helga is described as a very sort of homely person. She's described as large, or like you take it, overweight, and very plain, and purposefully dresses herself in like bad clothes. She wore the same shitty outfit all the time.
Yes, but also you get the sense that she could be pretty, at least from the way Miss Hopewell.
I mean, Mrs. Hopewell is hoping.
I mean, I guess I pictured her as someone who is deliberately making herself ugly, but I pictured her as reading it as someone who, you could do the thing that you do in movies where someone comes in and makes her up.
Take off the glasses.
Yeah, exactly.
Let the hair down.
Exactly, which happens later as she does have her glasses taken down. The other weird thing about Mrs. Freeman, just before we move away from that, and now we're getting it imperceptibly from Helga's perspective here. And that's why I think it's using the name Helga, I think, is to signal that, but I didn't get it. But it says, something about her seemed to fascinate Mrs. Freeman. And then one day, Helga realized it was the artificial leg. Mrs. Freeman had a special fondness for the details of secret infections, hidden deformities, assaults upon children.
I love the next sentence, too. Of diseases, she preferred the lingering or incurable. Yeah, actually, and then right before that, when she's talking about Ms. Freeman creeping her out, she says, however, Mrs. Freeman's relish for using the name only irritated her. It was as if Mrs. Freeman's beady, steel-pointed eyes had penetrated far enough behind her face to reach some secret fact.
Yeah, this is what I was saying, where she's pierced the shield.
Yeah, and there is something about Mrs. Freeman focusing on her leg that's making Helga vulnerable in the same way that I think Manly is going to pick up on the same thing.
And in the way that she thought wasn't possible. And I think that's, that's a kind of her own delusion. She thinks she has steeled herself with her just honest way of reckoning with the nothingness of the universe from these kinds of things. And it's such a kind of plain and ordinary thing to be a little vulnerable about, the fact that you have an artificial leg. So you could see why that would really dig at her,
Totally. And I think, of all the good things that is in this story, there's something that, I don't know anybody with that kind of disability, but there is a way in which like O'Connor's treatment of this seems right and respectful, even though she's a flawed character. She's not pussyfooting around the fact that like this is like a deep part of her that bothers her.
Totally.
Like, yeah. Oh, here's the other thing I wanted to say real quick. Mrs. Hopewell describes her walking around making noise in a way that Mrs. Hopewell is convinced is being dramatic. Like she thinks she's lumbering around on purpose, making it louder than she has to make it, which I took at face value as being true. But as I read it the second time, there's no real indication. That might just be Mrs. Hopewell being actually a bit uncharitable. Like it might actually be impossible for her to walk around without.
That's right. It could be. I don't think we know about that, but you get the sense probably some of the time it does sound like Joy Helga to do that, but it also, I think Miss Hopewell could also interpret that anyway.
There's something you said that I hadn't thought about. And I was saying that Miss Hopewell prides herself on her patience, and you said she's sort of deluded herself. The other way that it's obvious that she's deluding herself was when she's talking about how the Freemans are good country people, because she's had plenty of experience with trash. And so she's hired 4 different people in the last 4 years, and they were trash, so she had to get rid of them. Now that I think about it, there is no guarantee that she won't eventually come to the same conclusion about the Freemans. This is like,
they're new.
She might have thought at the beginning of each of those things that they were
this is like good country people. Right. So this is a cycle.
And then she actually loses her patience.
Yeah, this might be a cycle that her and Helga go through like every year. Yeah. And maybe, getting to the optimistic possible reading, this is the thing that could stop the cycle and have them progress a little bit. And I love the way Flannery O'Connor kind of dishes out details. Like you don't know, a quarter into the story that Joy is a philosophy PhD. It just kind of comes out, and there's some very funny things about that. So this is all from Mrs. Hopewell's perspective. This is right after she's talking about how slovenly she dresses. She was brilliant, but she didn't have a grain of sense. It seemed to Mrs. Hopewell that every year she grew less like other people and more like herself, bloated, rude, and squint-eyed. And she said such strange things. To her own mother, she had said, without warning, without excuse, standing up in the middle of a meal with her face purple and her mouth half full, "Woman, do you ever look inside? Do you ever look inside and see what you are not? God," she had cried, sinking down again and staring at her plate. Malebranche was right. We are not our own light. We are not our own light. And Mrs. Hopewell
a good dramatic reading.
Had no idea to this day what brought that on. It's just so funny.
It's so funny. And, it made me look up what Malebranche thought. And there is like a little bit of irony here because Malebranche was like deeply theistic. Yes. He thought that like God pervaded everything. And, talking about Spinoza's rock, like that's kind of what he thought about every action was just God acting. Yeah. It wasn't really you moving your leg. It's God moving through you, which is just opposed to like the metaphysics of joy explicitly.
Right. You get the sense and I'm not a Malebranche scholar, but I knew that he was theistic and a big believer, at least on paper. And I believe that he might have said, we are not our own light, but probably, if I had to guess, saying it's because God is our light,
That's exactly what And I think he was quoting or paraphrasing Augustine, who said that. But in that context, like you're right. There is also like a really great ambiguity in that first thing that she cries out, "Do you ever look inside and see what you are not?" Yeah. God, which is, I think, read properly on the surface as just like an exasperated thing to say at the end of the sentence. Like, do you know what you are not? God. But like, you are not God is also there.
That's how actually I read it.
Yeah, but it's like very ambiguous.
So Mrs. Hopewell doesn't think that a PhD in philosophy is an S-tier major, or The girl had taken a PhD in philosophy, and this left Mrs. Hopewell at a complete loss. You could say, my daughter is a nurse, or my daughter is a school teacher, or even, my daughter is a chemical engineer. You could not say, my daughter is a philosopher. That was something that had ended with the Greeks and Romans.
It's so funny that, like, you would boil down, like, the most significant choice of like, your daughter's career to your ability to talk to other people in a sentence and describe.
I think it's quite common, though, that people think that.
I'm sure, yeah.
It also makes me think that although she is 32, so much of the way Joy Helga is described is like of a 20-year-old. Like she talks, acts, and kind of exists as someone who hasn't quite grown up to the age that she actually is. So it's like a girl that's come back from college telling their parents why Marx was right about the labor theory of value or something like that. It's like she is in this kind of arrested development of college, but she's moved on 12 years since then.
Yeah, no, totally. I was wondering how much of this was an explicit statement on the ability of graduate school to stunt emotional growth, because I feel like you can extend your adolescence or your early 20hood very easily by going to grad school.
She looked at nice young men as if she could smell their stupidity, Mrs. Hopewell is thinking. One day, this is all just part of the comedy, but she just picks up a book that the girl had just put down. I like that even that, like in her perspective of the narrative, she's still a girl. That the girl had put down, and opening it at random, she read, "Science, on the other hand, has to assert its soberness and seriousness afresh and declare that it is concerned solely with what is. Nothing. How can it be for science anything but a horror and phantasm? Nothing. If science is right, then one thing stands firm. Science wishes to know nothing of nothing. Such is, after all, the strict scientific approach to nothing. We know it by wishing to know nothing of nothing." It says that these words worked on Mrs. Hopewell like an evil cantation in gibberish.
I love that.
And this is Heidegger. But apparently, if she's seeing this as kind of a perfect description of the nihilistic condition that we all live in, I think, again, it is a misreading of Heidegger, according to what I read, but I don't know. But it would be interesting if she's just misreading all of these figures that she takes herself to be the only person who can understand.
Yeah. I think that's right. Also, this notion of nothing, like, will come back. Right?
Yeah.
It seems like a central to her.
Do you have an interpretation of this passage just as a passage, since it seems so thematically central?
Yeah, I read it as just the interesting metaphysical point that what nothing is outside of the bounds of the discipline of science that can only be concerned with what is. Like, the question of nothing is terrifying, and certainly not something science is equipped to or would like to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's that line, how can it be for science anything but a horror and a phantasm? It might seem like methodologically it's difficult to deal with nothing because science is about the physical universe, but like, why does it have to be a horror and a phantasm for science?
It is metaphysically hard to imagine. Did you ever as a kid ask yourself the question, why is there something rather than nothing? Like, that's like a terrifying question to me. Yeah. It's hard to conceive of the absence of everything. It can induce true terror in me to think too long about why is there something rather than nothing.
Yeah,
like
that's a big question.
Yeah. And it is, in a non-cognitive way, an evil incantation and gibberish.
Yeah. You know the Jewish joke about that, where someone goes up to this famous rabbi and says, "Rabbi, I don't understand. Why is there something rather than nothing?" And the rabbi says, "If there was nothing, you'd probably still be complaining."
That's good. I had not heard that.
What's interesting just structurally is we now are having this fully from Mrs. Hopewell's perspective, talking about Joy. And this is where we're first introduced to Joy Helga and the details about her life and the hunting accident.
It was blown clean off and she was never unconscious. Yeah. So like that she had to deal with the pain, I think, is scarring to Mrs. Hopewell and another reason why she's so sort of like protective or babying.
And understandably, right? Like that's horrifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's horrifying. It's also the thing that fascinates Mrs. Freeman.
Dude, I just thought too, that blown clear off is nothing. That wooden leg
yeah.
is a Band-Aid on nothing.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's where first she had a leg, she has nothing.
Now there's nothing. And
what is that?
Also trying to read some of the secondary literature, like the idea of the wood replacing her is like she has a wooden soul, like there is something deeply not human.
It could also be like the futility of trying to replace nothing with something artificial. Structurally, this is kind of interesting because we're getting this all from Mrs. Hopewell's perspective, and the triggering event we learn is that Joy had been talking to this tall, gaunt, hatless youth who had called yesterday to sell them a Bible. So we hear about this kid who comes over. He's got a big briefcase full of, he goes farm to farm selling Bibles. He just seems like kind of a hapless young kid trying to sell Bibles, and Mrs. Hopewell tries to kind of get rid of him.
Yeah. As one would a Bible salesman.
Yeah, exactly. So Mrs. Hopewell is not overly religious or religious at all. When he says, which is probably just a Bible salesman line, you don't have a Bible in your parlor. And he actually says, I see that is the one lack you got. That's like the lack, the nothingness that he wants to fill with the Bible. But then it's kind of interesting where she says she keeps it by her bedside, which she lies. It's in the attic. She has no idea really where it is. And he says the word of God ought to be in the parlor. Again, like probably a salesman line. And she says, I think that's a matter of taste. And one of the things when I read that and kind of comparing it to a bunch of other lines is there is a bit of relativism that pervades Mrs. Hopewell as well. And a lot of her cliches are about that. It's a matter of taste. It takes all kinds, different kinds of people. So it's like, obviously, she would never frame it in those terms. And she has certain things where it's like good country people or trash. But a lot of things are just... It's a matter of taste. It really depends on the person. Yeah,
you're totally right. I feel like my subconscious picked up on that attitude, but I hadn't thought explicitly. But that's totally right. It's a tolerance that borders into relativism.
And then he does like, I'm just a caveman thing. But instead of saying I'm just a caveman, he says I'm just a country boy. And I understand you don't want to fool with country people like me, which is the perfect thing to say to Mrs. Hopewell.
It's exactly manipulative. And you wonder in retrospect, like, is he just very good at manipulating? I think he picked up on that she has this like savior syndrome to the good country people.
Totally. Like, I think you've got to think that just based on what happens, but you don't think of it at the time. You think he just kind of lucked out and it was like, no, good country people are the salt of the earth. And here's another one. We all have different ways of doing it. Takes all kinds to make the world go round. That's life. just cliches.
Stringing together three of them. 4 of them.
So then we find out that he's Manly Pointer. Yeah, it could be a dick joke.
Yep. And he says he's from out of the country around Willowhobe.
Yeah.
Not even from a place, just from near a place.
Yeah, which is... So, I mean, we could throw this out right now. Is this a satanic figure?
Oh, interesting. This reminds me of our discussion of a good man is hard to find because I think that he might be, but my interpretation at the end is that he offers some hope of salvation to Joy.
Yeah.
By his actions, which was kind of what we were looking at last time when it's like, he's bad, but like through him.
It might be the only way to achieve some kind of grace is through this satanic-like figure.
He definitely feels like a chaotic god, like a trickster, but like more malicious maybe than a trickster, like a bad trickster.
Yeah, but a very like he can exploit weaknesses of people and he can size people up right away. Joy says, get rid of salt of the earth and let's eat, but no, she's hooked now, Mrs. Hopewell, and so invites him to dinner and they have dinner. Yeah.
Here's where there is just like some obvious symbolism where he describes himself as the 7th child of 12. And then he says that he sold 77 Bibles. These are just like, the holy number of God is 7.
Yeah.
Right?
12 tribes of Israel.
12 tribes of Israel. Like these are definitely numbers with meaning that he's throwing out.
Yeah. And then you see, and I don't exactly know how Joy got to the road, but we learn that she walked him to the gate when he leaves and that they talked. And one of the things she's thinking about right now is what on earth could those two have had to say to each other? And we don't learn that until later. And then Mrs. Freeman, like as this little thing just kind of pops in and says, Glynese was out with Harvey Hill, but Harvey Hill cured her sty.
So weird. He's a chiropractor that's dating her daughter. And the way he cured her sty is by like adjusting her neck.
So we learned that they scheduled a date. Joy and why can't I ever remember his first name? What's his Marley Pointy?
Manly.
Right. That's Manly Pointy.
Pointer.
Fuck. Manly Pointer.
Because you got Merlot Pointy
That's
in
right.
your
That's
head.
exactly what it is.
Manly
I got
Pointer,
that in my head.
Think about it as like a dick stick. Manly Pointer.
Manly Pointer. What I find that's interesting about this as we shift back to Helga's perspective is that you can clearly see that she's kind of excited about the date, even though she's not thinking of it that way. Like she stays up half the night.
She was rubbing one out, dude. She was totally like...
Yeah, she's thinking she might have seduced him. She's thinking like true genius can get an idea across even to an inferior mind.
Yeah, she thinks she's toying with an inferior person.
Yeah.
She's like, this is this innocent Bible salesman whose worldview is so misguided. And she essentially, by saying like she wants to seduce him and have him come face to face with his like transgression, like that he acted against his own beliefs, she wants to use that to like throw cold water on his face, wake him up from his dogmatic slumber.
Exactly.
She wants to shake him up.
Yes, she wants to corrupt him, but in service of revealing to him the truth about life, to, take the scales down from his eyes. And it's so funny. I mean, it's such a kind of reversal of that, what ends up happening, but, and it's almost a withering kind of, critique of this character, the fact that she's thinking about him like this. But then also even, you can also see that that's part of it, but part of it is she's excited because she's never had a date in her whole life. She's never kissed a boy. And the little sad, pathetic...
She puts some Vapex.
She puts the Vapex on her collar. That's so kind of sad, but I think that shows that, oh no, this isn't about like educating a young man about the truth, about the reality.
Yeah, she's getting something out of it. And maybe even trying to convince herself that she doesn't actually care.
For sure. Because when they kiss a little later on, even though it had like this surge of adrenaline, she says, even before he released her, her mind, clear and detached and ironic anyway, was regarding him from a great distance with amusement but with pity. She had never been kissed before, and she was pleased to discover that it was an unexceptional experience and all a matter of the mind's control. So she really thinks she's got the power in this dynamic. And even though she's never, like, that's such a huge thing for her to be kissed.
Totally.
She's like, oh, this is no big deal anyway. Just like, I'm so glad I was right about that,
Yeah, it's like, it's all just a unwillingness to be vulnerable or like a fear.
Yeah, and opposed to herself, like, because it's not even opposed to anybody else at this point.
And her defense mechanisms, like clearly intellectualizing. But the other thing that I just thought of is that this is, like you said, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Both Joy, Helga, and her mom use other people as projects.
Yep.
Like they view other people as their personal projects.
That's right. And they think that they can save them. And speaking of salvation, as they're walking along, he asks her, "You ain't saved." And she says to him, "In my economy," she said, "I'm saved and you are damned. But I told you I didn't believe in God." And then he's still just admiring her, which is exactly how she thought this would go.
Yeah.
And I like, he says, "Ain't there somewheres we can sit down sometime? I'm just a caveman." And she says, "In that barn." So it's like he makes it so that she suggests that they go to the barn.
Totally. Yeah. Because, she's enacting her plan to seduce him.
And it's like a classic con man move, is to make them think they're the ones who chose the thing that you wanted, like that he brought them there to buy the barn.
Totally. And there is some foreshadowing / insight that the narration provides that presumably Helga notices, but doesn't really put it together, where it says, "Nothing seemed to destroy the boy's look of admiration. He gazed at her now as if the fantastic animal at the zoo had put its paw through the bars and given him a loving poke."
Yeah, that's her perspective.
That's her perspective. But like what she doesn't realize is, she is. the animal that he's in control over.
He's the zookeeper.
Exactly.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more I think this is also about the illusion of control from both the characters, Hopewell and the daughter. They think they're in charge, and in fact, they are not at all. So they go up to the barn.
He has we didn't mention, he has his big old Bible case, and she's like, why did you bring that to our date?
Never know when you might need the word of God.
Exactly.
So they kiss for a while, and she's kind of resisting, but not really doing it. And then it's the interesting little exchange where he says, "You ain't said you loved me none. You got to say that."
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to say it, obviously, but it seems very important to him to get her to say that.
Yeah.
And the way she says it is such a kind almost parody of a pseudo-intellectual. She says, in a sense, if you use the word loosely, you might say that. But it's not the word I use. I don't have illusions. I'm one of the people who see through to nothing. And he's just like, you got to say it. You got to say it.
And when I read it the first time, I was like, oh, yeah, he's just like so naive. He thinks that like you should be feeling like you're in love if we're kissing each other because I really love you, like he's a sucker.
So she says, we are all damned, but some of us have taken off our blindfolds and see there's nothing to see. It's a kind of salvation. And then he's like, but do you love me or don't you? And then she says, in a sense, but I must tell you something. There mustn't be anything dishonest between us. I am 30 years old. I have a number of degrees. And what's so funny is she is not even 30 years old. She's 32. The reason I thought she was 30 is because of this line, but then you corrected me. And I was like, I must have read that wrong. But she's even lying here. Yeah. But it's such a stupid lie. It's such an irrelevant lie.
Yeah. He says, I don't care. I don't care about all you've done. I just want you to know if you love me or don't you.
And now if she had any sense, she would be like, I just told this kid that I'm 30 years old. Why is he not reacting to that at all?
And on the second time, I just read it as like him insisting that she say that is again him sort of like manipulating the situation in such a way that she'll feel committed in some way to like going through with it. And
but this is why it came across to me as a little bit of a satanic figure. It's almost like, if I get you to say that, then I get your soul or something. Like if I don't, then even if I carry out my plan, I haven't fully, unmasked you.
Totally.
But she doesn't fully give him that, like she gives him, And then he says he wants to take off her leg. And here's where the vulnerability, like she's finally able to admit that she has this vulnerability.
Yeah.
So at first she thinks he's just trying to get to her vagina by asking her to take off her leg. But when she says it joins only at the knee, why would you want to see it in that case? And he still does, he says, because it makes you different.
That hadn't even crossed my mind. I think you're right.
Yeah. So she says she decided that for the first time in her life, she was face to face with real innocence. And it's like, in some ways that's true, but it's not him that's innocent. It's you.
Yeah. Like we get just a completely different person because when he says, show me where it joins on, it says the girl uttered a sharp little cry and her face instantly drained of color.
Yeah.
We get another point where color is rising to her and goes to her neck, but here it's like draining.
Yeah.
And even just a sharp little cry is a very feminine, innocent, childish kind of thing, which is very different from the sort of lumbering, yelling, loud person that we've been told
gloomy,
she is.
And it says, this boy with an instinct that had come from beyond wisdom had touched the truth about her.
And what is that truth?
I don't know.
Like that's
the next line, when after a minute she said in a hoarse, high voice, all right, it was like surrendering to him completely. It was like losing her own life and finding it again miraculously in his. So the very thing she thought she was going to do to him is happening to her right now there.
Yeah, he flipped it.
Yeah, so now comes the twist. Even now, I wasn't expecting it. There's something weird going on, but...
I thought, okay, he's just trying to fuck.
But then he just kind of takes it off and he's like, in the kind of boyish way, like, oh, look, I can do it. I can put it back into the on. It's like Legos. And then he takes out he opens up his case, and this is kind of funny, right? He has two Bibles. One of them is hollow, and in it is a whiskey, a pack of cards, and condoms. And the cards are like, like those like dirty cards. Yeah.
And he offers her a swig of whiskey.
That's right. It's great.
Yeah.
And then she's like, aren't you just good country people? Yeah, but it ain't held me back none. I'm as good as you any day of the week. And then she asks for her leg back. Nope. And then he says, and I think this is, if it's almost a little bit on the nose, where she's like, yelling at him, give me my leg. And he says, what's the matter with you all of a sudden? You just said a while ago you didn't believe in nothing. I thought you was some girl. I mean, yeah, like we should back up. Like, what do you make of, like what you said, touch the truth about her? What's the truth there?
Yeah. So, okay, here's a connection I wanted to draw that might get at this, because I don't know that I have a good answer. But when Manley was talking to Mrs. Hopewell there and sort of telling his life story, and he said he wants to devote himself to become a missionary, he quotes Jesus, "He who loses his life shall find it." And she thought he was so sincere or whatever. Here now we get also like a direct reference to that, where like that leg is her. It's her identity. It's so much of her and who she is wrapped up in that leg. And that's what he saw. And that's what she was willing to like open up herself and be vulnerable about, like to the point where she's fantasizing about him taking off her leg every night and putting it back on.
Yeah.
Like she gets to like a real like vulnerable place. And then he takes his leg, her leg, which is again, like her life, her identity, in a way, making her lose her life in a way that I think will help her actually find out who she is. Like that act that he's doing, making her sacrifice herself in order to find herself, is what I think is going on.
So that's the truth about her, is that...
That's what it's hard for me to put my finger on, because like, what is the truth? Because I think Mrs. Freeman has seen this truth too. That's what makes her so uncomfortable about Mrs. Freeman.
Yes, right.
And it's all about the leg.
Right.
And what is it? Because it's just a stupid leg, but it is the thing that she has infused, like all of what life means, like this absence. It's this nothingness that is represented by this artificial limb that's like patching up the nothingness. And it's like as if they're giving her the true sense of nothingness by taking it away, or by whatever it is.
Yeah.
They both, the dumb, uneducated country folk, are aware very clearly of what she is.
Yeah. It's the leg is at the center of her whole worldview. She wouldn't say that. She would just say, this is one of the things that helped me understand, like, that life is nothing. But I also think the fact that it's wood, the fact that it's material, it's so kind of crassly material, is also part of her worldview, that everything is just matter and motion, and this leg is all of us. And it's only when the leg isn't there, the wooden leg, that she realizes, no, that has a deeper meaning for me than I was willing to accept. And it is like, and that's why when it's taken away, it touches her in a way that she has spent so much of her life immunizing herself from being touched in that way. Like she has built this wall around herself, and the leg is at the heart of the wall. It's the foundation of the wall. So yeah, that's good.
That desperation that she shows, like when he takes it away.
Oh God,
she's it's so visceral. Give me my leg. He pushed it farther away with his foot. Come on now, let's begin to have us a good time, he said coaxingly. We ain't got to know one another good yet. Give me my leg, she screamed and tried to lunge for it, but he pushed her down easily.
Yeah. You just said you didn't believe in nothing. Like that's what's like, I think, if anything is a little heavy-handed, it's, maybe it's that. And then she says, you're a Christian. She's so indignant. And then she tries to put it back into her categories. It's like, oh, of course, because you're a Christian and you're a hypocrite. And you say one thing, you preach one thing and do another. And I love his response here. He says, and he's kind of actually pissed. He's like, I hope you don't think I believe in that crap. I may sell Bibles, but I know which end is up, and I wasn't born yesterday, and I know where I'm going. That seems like a reference to the opening line, like about Mrs. Freeman.
Yeah,
they're spiritually connected, I think.
They are. And I think this is also just a commentary on like your condescending doesn't like allow you to see what a complicated man is.
That's right. And so she's screaming, give him my leg, and she saw him grab the leg, and I don't think he rapes her, right? Really?
No,
Just wants the leg?
I don't think so at all.
She saw him grab the leg, and then she saw it for an instant slanted forlornly inside of the suitcase with the Bible at either side of it. That's why he brought it, like the...
Yep,
and,
he brought that big case.
And he says, when all of him had passed but his head, he turned and regarded her with a look that no longer had any admiration in it. I've gotten a lot of interesting things, he said. One time I got a woman's glass eye this way, and you needn't think you'll ever catch me, because Pointer ain't my real name. I use a different name at every house I call, and I don't stay nowhere long. And I'll tell you another thing, Helga. He said, using the name as if he didn't think much of it. You ain't so smart. I've been believing in nothing ever since I was born.
Dude.
It's the final, unmasking and triumph. Yeah.
Totally. But also, to get back to the Odysseus, yelling, talking shit as he's leaving the Cyclops and saying, I'm not nobody.
Yeah. You thought you could eat my men and do a thing. And and what he doesn't do is give his real name.
He doesn't give his real name. Yeah, he learned from the
Odyssey.
So I remember in the briefcase in Pulp Fiction that glows, it's just the MacGuffin. I remember early on people would have these theories about what was in the briefcase, and one of the theories was that it was Marcellus Wallace's soul, and that's why he was so interested in getting it back. Yeah. And they said, the Band-Aid that he has in the back of his neck is where they
took out
removed his soul. Yeah. This strikes me as him, an evil, whatever, Satan, demon, trickster, going around collecting souls, putting him in his briefcase.
Yeah.
He got the glass eye, which is also, the eye is the window to the soul. It's also an artificial appendage.
Yep. Material, not biology. Yeah. It's not infused with spirit. It's just it's a marble, It's a marble, and there's a hole when it's gone. And it's easy to believe that this was another person who thought that he was the naive one. So I'm interested in you saying that this is sort of a pathway for her salvation, because if it is, then there's a way in which he is a missionary. He goes he saves people from, I don't know, their nihilism or their bleak worldview, or maybe just opens their eyes. Like he says, you ain't so smart, Yeah. And even though I didn't fully get an optimistic read at the end, I did get that this is something that if she was ever going to grow as a person, and I don't know if she will or not, it had to be something this dramatic. A way of completely exposing the pretensions as just pretensions, as built of absolutely nothing. Because when the chips were down, you get indignant and you start saying you're a Christian and you are good country people. She becomes her mother. Yeah. And she had to realize how full of shit she was in order to possibly mature. I don't think she definitely will, but maybe this is the only way something this horrible that it was possible. Yeah. Given how dug in she was before.
Yeah, totally. And I think this is just like the story A Good Man Is Hard to Find, when at the very end, you could argue that there's a moment of grace given purely as a result of this horrible man's actions right before he murders grandma. She sort of has this moment where she transcends what she was before. And here I'm again struck by you got to lose your life before you find it.
To die before you can rise again.
Yeah. And this is the thing that she has to go through. Whatever it is that drops the scales from her eyes. But in this case, it's true. It's not an optimistic story in the sense that you're not left with a tender feeling at the end. What you're left with, which is eerie, is at the very end when Mrs. Freeman and Mrs. Hopewell are digging up onions, they see him coming out of the forest with his thing. And Mrs. Hopewell is like, oh, look, that's the kid that tried to sell me a Bible. Maybe he's back there selling them to the Negroes. And the last paragraph says, Mrs. Freeman's gaze drove forward and just touched him before he disappeared under the hill.
Yeah. Mrs. Hopewell, in very Mrs. Hopewell fashion, says, he was so simple, but I guess the world would be better off if we were all that simple.
Then she returned her attention to the evil-smelling, all one word, evil-smelling onion shoot she was lifting from the ground. Some can't be that simple, she said. I know I never could.
It really is. They are two peas in a pod, Mrs. Hopewell and Helga. They just don't get it, right? And Mrs. Freeman knows that's not right,
Yeah. She saw that there was something there. And I wonder if Mrs. Freeman got a sense that something was going to happen like this, that this kid was actually not who he seemed, that he had the power of doing something bad to Helga, or at least doing something that she wouldn't expect. And maybe Mrs. Freeman sees that it's good for her. Maybe she sees that she will be freed. She will be a free man when
after this, maybe. Yeah. Maybe she summoned him, you know?
Yeah. All right.
Both of them share this fascination with the leg, as we said before, maybe in some weird way. And I think, like, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say that she summoned him in some supernatural way, that they are, I don't know, some kind of dark force that actually has the capacity to bring light through darkness, nothing like that. But what I do think, if there's anything that, I don't know, a positive message to take from this story, is that we can all get locked down in our categories of how we divide up the world, whether it's nihilistic, whether it's good country people or trash, that like the world and the universe and life is way more mysterious than we can fathom. And it's the people who think they have it figured out, and I think this is true of Good Man Is Hard to Find too, the people who think they have it figured out are in for a deep, deep reckoning and a surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the mystery is something you have to accept, or else this world will be impoverished and maybe evil to you. Nothing.
Yeah. You know, there's this, like in one of the like Paul's letters in the New Testament, he has this passage where he says that like God's grace covers our, like saves us from our sins. And like because of our sins, grace was necessary. And then he says, shall we sin that grace abound? And his conclusion is no. Don't think that you should do bad things so that God's grace might infuse the world, because that would be like a misuse. But in both of the stories that we read of Flannery O'Connor, I feel like grace just came from like
confronting evil
acts.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the only way that it could have happened to these people. Like if these people were just surrounded by the good people, maybe the ones that conformed to their categories or whatever, or they had figured out, they could predict, it just wouldn't happen. Yes. They need to be existentially rocked to their core by the face of badness.
They needed to learn that they weren't in charge, that they weren't in control. And this is the only way to do that.
Yeah.
Is to be confronted with this and to be so thoroughly exposed and kind of undressed, basically, and literally in a way. So, yeah, what a story. It's like even like greater just thinking about it. I mean, what a genius.
I know. Yeah. If her other stories are even close to these two,
we should just do that only.
She's in my like fucking Mount Rushmore of short story writers. Yeah.
Yeah, just great. All right, we should wrap up. Any final words?
We should sin that grace abound, Tamler.
Yeah, we should sin.
We should go around doing evil.
We should perform repugnant acts, so grace abounds. Join us next time on Very Bad Wizards.
The great boss has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. Pay no attention to that man. Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.